Salutations, people who watch things on the internet. It's very, very early on Monday morning. It's like 12:15 in the morning. It's been a long day, so I just got around to watching this week's episode, which was called Closing Time. If you haven't done so already, if you like these Doctor Who reviews, or you just, you want to click on something, go click subscribe. Last week's Doctor Who review is down there in case you missed the God Complex, and we'll throw something else over there for you, as always. So, I'm going to try to keep these shorter. They've been running like 20 minutes long, because there's so much to talk about in the world of Doctor Who. This is the second to last episode in this season, and the news broke this week that the next season, Season 7, won't be until like fall of 2012. So we have like a year to wait until any new Doctor Who. I guess we'll see probably a Christmas special, and there's talk of another Easter special, so that will kind of bridge the gap. But then we'll roll into the fall of 2012 to catch Season 7, hit a mid-season Christmas special, which will be a new thing in the world of Doctor Who, and then in 2013 we'll see the second half of Season 7, which will also apparently coincide with the 50-year anniversary of Doctor Who. So who knows what all that means for Doctor Who, but it means we have a very long time between next week and more full season Doctor Who. This episode was interesting because it was our first episode sans Amy and Rory, kind of. We'll get to that. Spoilers. At first, for the first half of the episode, I was like, I kind of miss not having Amy and Rory around. We've had the companion episodes for such a long time, and this is the first episode where we really haven't had a full-on companion. And Craig, who we used to saw in a previous episode of The Lodger, makes back an appearance here. Sophie, his now, well, I guess girlfriend, she's not his wife, as we find out, makes small appearances, but not really. She doesn't interact with the Doctor as much as Craig does. We find out that Craig now has a baby, which all plays into this episode involving the Cybermen, which is not really all that much about the Cybermen. It's very much a character episode about the Doctor and him coming to terms with the events that are going to happen, apparently in the next day, which we find out is the day that he dies at Lake Silencio. So we've made a time jump. There's a time shift here. Apparently this happens prior to Doctor meeting Amy and Rory in Utah with the blue letters that he sent out, because we see him take them off the fridge at the end of this episode from Craig's house. So we've now just gone wobbly-jobbly with our concept of a linear storyline. We thought we were here, but the Doctor's apparently brought them back to here. So there was some discussion about, at the end of last week's, whether this house that the Doctor drops Amy and Rory off of is the house that they end up leaving from to go to America at the beginning of this season. And while a bunch of people said it didn't look like the same house and it wasn't, I think now we're maybe supposed to believe that it is. And just when I thought I was okay with an Amy and Rory less episode that they weren't in, they go and throw Amy and Rory in the middle of this episode, which I was just like, well, you established they're not here, and you established the Doctor's on his own, and now you throw in this whole Amy has apparently created a perfume line, which is after when he dropped them off, by the context of the fact that it's for the girl who waited. And whatever name was up there, I thought it might have some hidden meaning, so I dropped it into an anagram thing, and nothing really came up. So whatever the name of her perfume was apparently has no revelation towards the future, or it may, and it just totally eluded me, unless someone can shed some light on that. As always, just go down there. We had some great discussion last week, guys, in the comments down below. So continue to leave your thoughts. I love reading them and seeing you guys talk about each other. And if it takes like 7 different comments, that's awesome. It's great. Thanks. So I felt back and forth about this episode. I thought it was good standalone episode in the fact that, like, clearly it's not about this big storyline, but then it was a character-driven episode in the way Craig really draws these things out about the Doctor, that he needs someone to be around all the time, that he needs to depend on other people, that he really likes having other people depend on him, and Craig ultimately kind of fulfills that, and then also fulfills that for his son later in the episode. Then we have the ending, which again felt very tacked on and just addendum to keep the storyline moving. I thought there was plenty enough in the Craig and Doctor interactions about how Doctor's opening up to Craig about the fact that he is going to die and he's having to come to grips with this, and apparently he has to now plan because of the blue letters. And I still think, we're just going to go straight into speculation, like I said, we can try to keep it short. I think the fact that the Doctor that ends up traveling with Rory and Amy throughout the future has stated in the beginning of this season, episode 1, that he's older, that he's like 300 years older. I think somewhere in the first episode there must have been a switcheroo, that the Doctor, the Doctor from the theoretical future is the one who dies, and then the actual Doctor has now said he is older to preserve, because if he does live through this, then he would have been old enough to come back and die for himself again later in a very Harry Potter-esque way. So the Doctor we see here is the actual Doctor, and he will go through it, but then will switch with himself in Utah so that a future version of him can die so he can continue on. And that we are seeing the death of the Doctor because the future Doctor has come back and died to preserve the lifeline of the now Doctor, if that all makes sense. And that whole River song and the silence being there erasing her memory kind of fits into this whole, she doesn't know who the Doctor is, but then she's been searching for him and she's using the Blue Book and Eye Patch Lady. And the preview for next week doesn't help at all, and I'm hoping somehow this is all going to get wrapped up in a season ending, at least in terms of this River Doctor thing. I don't know if we're going to see what I still think is very highly likely a reset of the entire universe back to the crack in the wall. And the title of The Wedding of River Song doesn't necessarily help a lot with next week's episode, which we're just going to have to see. Back to this episode, to closing time. Very interesting choices about who the Doctor is and what he feels is important, working in a shop and feeling very uneasy about having to make social calls. I think Matt Smith had some great moments of insecurity, which I think they established well in the beginning of the episode, that leads into the end of the episode in terms of him overcoming this insecurity of having to rely and need and be fulfilled by people. And there's that very much moment where he sees Amy and Rory, that he realizes that he needs them as a part of his life, that they have contributed to him, and he has come to rely on them much more than he thought he should have. Which is an interesting character point about the Doctor, because these past 2 seasons, I think, more so than Tennant and Eggleston, we very much learned at least some of who the Doctor is, at least up here and right here. And Matt Smith's Doctor is very much one who is trying to figure out how he relates to the human race. And before, it's been more of a, I'm here and you're along with me, but now it's more almost a codependency between him and the human race, and that fact that he does come back and he does connect with Craig again, and he does come back to save the world over and over again, and that he is realizing, yes, the world depends on him whether they know it or not. So, and I love the bit about him getting the cowboy hat and how that's going to factor back into Lake Silencio and Utah and stuff like that. So, I don't know. I'm really interested to see what you guys think about this episode. I'm really interested to see what happens next episode. Yes, kind of filler. Yes, kind of tacked on and continuing the storyline. But necessary, because I feel we've wasted a bit of time through the end of the season because we spent so much time ramming it home that there's this big, long storyline that we're taking care of. And now we're having to sum it all up completely before the end of the season. But Moffat is one to, I won't be surprised if it doesn't get all wrapped up and there's this giant cliffhanger, just massive cliffhanger, even more so than the first half of this season. If you guys are all familiar with Sherlock, his other series that's been going on, which was only a 3-episode run, technically 4 because there's an unaired pilot which is on a DVD, which I need to see. If you haven't seen Sherlock, go find it. And episode 3 just ends with this massive cliffhanger for a 3-episode show, and glad those episodes are coming back. But so I don't think it's completely outside of the realm of Stephen Moffat just to screw with us even more and probably drop more bombs than answers. We're in a very lost type situation in terms of how this is all going to wrap up, in terms of now timelines have been messed up, and this is pre-Lake Silencio and pre the blue envelopes that are going out to River, to Amy, to Rory. How River even gets this, or if there's 2 Rivers now, because clearly River is, I guess we have no context of where in time, in the timeline that River ends up meeting eye patch lady when she is now a doctor. So many questions. Love to see what you guys have thought. If you haven't already, just do it again. Subscribe. Give me a thumbs up. Give me a thumbs down. I don't really care. Just let me know how you feel. Leave some comments. Tell me why you gave me a thumbs down. It only helps me make these reviews better for you guys. And we'll see you guys again next week, which I'm sure will be ridiculously long as we talk about all the bazillion things that are going to happen. Until next time, adios.